Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series, playing against Evoken. It is June 8th in our Let's Play series, and we are playing as the Allies, if you haven't been following this all that closely, and we're looking at the June 8th replay. And the replay gets off to a great start. The Japanese torpedo a tanker, the Fenris, off the coast of Australia. I'm not sure if they were one of the ships bringing fuel into Australia or not, but we've been running convoys in and out of Perth on the southwestern coast of Australia, and periodically we've seen Japanese submarines attack us in that area. We've also, there's another, so there's at least two submarines, one northwest of Perth, one southwest of Perth, so they just fired on the Silver Teak, another cargo ship here. But yeah, and the I-123 puts another torpedo into one of our ships. It is the Silver Teak, so they fired at the Silver Teak again. 2 torpedo hits, on fire, heavy damage. That is 3 fish fired from the Silver Teak, and yeah, not good news there. The only good news is the I-123 is... Alright, the Silver Teak sinks. The only good news there is the I-123 is burning through its torpedo allotment, I guess. Sinking up, and the tanker goes down too. So, not a good day if you're an Allied merchantman off the coast of Australia, I suppose. Now, you may recall last turn we wiped out an ASW task force of the Japanese near Sumatra, sort of on the northeast coast near Medan of the Dutch East Indies there. I'm flank speeding my destroyers and cruisers out of the area to get them out from under potential enemy air attacks, but we'll see if anything comes of it, if the Japanese are able to get a hold of anything. Doesn't look like they changed the targeting rules for their Betty bombers flying out of Palembang. They're still going for Coast Coast Island, so that's interesting, to say the least. And we've also got some bombers going for Clark Field, which is sort of par for the course. That kind of happens every single day. And some guys going for Clark Field also. So, the usual bombing raids occurring here. Nothing untoward outside the initial submarine attacks earlier in the day. Doesn't seem like a whole lot of stuff happening. We do have bombers going for Ifate, and they are attacking the 1st Naval Construction Battalion at Ifate, doing a little bit of damage. They're flying out of Suva. So we're basically just trying to get intel on what the Japanese might have in the surrounding areas between Fiji and Australia, you know, New Caledonia, and then Espiritu Santos in that area. We are considering a counterattack in that general direction, but you know, we're still waiting to see what comes of these various raids and things that are going on that we're trying to get a look at. You know, the bad guys. And another submarine torpedoed one of our ships, the Admiral, off the coast of Burma. So there's that too. Damn, a lot of submarine activity going on here. So we got that, and she sank as well. So 2 merchantmen down. Looks like our motor gunboats are attacking the I-157 near Rangoon itself. So, didn't really do anything. They spotted it. It was forced to dive. Didn't actually sink anything. So he's got a sub along our transit routes between Calcutta and Rangoon, which is sort of the safer route. And then he's continuing to bombard our troops in the Philippines. So... really just a submarine turn, I would say. Not a lot else happened. No signs of any other attacks in the works. No sign of any enemy air attacks against our cruisers and destroyers that were escaping after the raid near the Dutch East Indies. Suva managed to extend the port to size 4, so that should be good in terms of allowing us to turn Suva into a nice little base there for potential operations against the New Caledonia line. And, yeah. So we'll have to take a look and see. All right. Meanwhile, we also told some of our battleships that had refits available for them to begin the refits in Pearl, because we probably weren't using them immediately. So I have to go and take a look at that as well. All right, so let's go ahead and load the save. I've already done most of the turn. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this. Let's take a look at those battleships at Pearl first, since I'm just already here. We've got the California and Tennessee coming out of dry dock in an effort to move them to the West Coast to repair more quickly. And then we've got the Idaho, New Mexico, and Mississippi all undergoing refit. Why can this guy has to go to a yard? Oh, because he's got engine damage. Weird. It doesn't change his refit time, so I don't know why. I don't know why he's got the little X. Oh, the exclamation went away. I was like, why? Why is that there? All right, so New Mexico will take 29 days to complete her refit, and then you've got Idaho and Mississippi both. You can convert to what? But Mexico's already a battleship, so I don't understand what you're converting. But anyway, so you've got 2 ships that are going to be out of commission refitting for 20 days, and then one that's out for 29 days. These are their last refits until 43. All of them look like they get refits in October of 43. They're going to get a whole bunch of 20mm Oerlikons, 40mm Bofors added. I believe they were mostly 1.1-inch AAA guns before the updates. I also think the radar is new, at least some of it maybe on some of these guys. So that's there as well. I'm getting some weird graphical stuff where things are bouncing around on the screen a bit. So if it looks annoying there, I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm using an old TV as a monitor right now because I'm still figuring out my situation with my LG monitor, which crapped out at 30 months, which, as you can tell that I mentioned in each of the last 2 videos, not too thrilled. I've never had issues with a monitor that young before. LCD screens are super reliable nowadays. That should not happen, but anyway, I digress. All right, so we've got these other battleships. Are any of these other ready for upgrades yet? No, not till August. So they might already have radars on some of these boys, because it looks like these ships have radars, but probably the big upgrade was replacing 50 cals with 20mm and 1.1 inchers with Bofors, I would guess. Because it looks like all of them at least have some radar. Maybe they got an upgraded radar, because like Arizona has an older version. But in any event. So that's going on there. What else? We had our ships getting torpedoed left and right. One of those ships was in this task force, I believe, which is actually on its way out of Rangoon. So we had 4 cargo ships on the way back to Rangoon. None of them had any cargo in them, but the Japanese did sink one of them with a torpedo here off the coast of Calcutta. I believe that was them, unless it was one of these guys coming into port. I don't think it was, though. In any event. And then we also had the shipping off the southwestern corner of Australia getting shredded by torpedoes. These guys were all on their way back to Cape Town, so they had already unloaded. It's interesting that he torpedoed the ships down here, because we do have task forces up here as well. So actually, if we take a look at the ships sunk, where did it say they were sunk? Let's make sure that's a valid assumption. So we had the Fenris, which was torpedoed at 39,147, which is... Okay, so never mind. I was wrong. 39,147 is here, so they torpedoed the tanker here. We've got 2 task forces. One is coming out of Perth, so it wasn't part one of these guys. They're heading west toward Colombo. They got a couple of patrol gunboats who, in theory, could keep an enemy sub off their back for a little bit. Unfortunately, they're being held back by one slower tanker. The other guys are all a little bit faster. And then we have the task force, which I believe included the tanker that was sunk. This is a huge fuel task force. You've got 2 destroyers and a patrol gunboat all in this task force. Surprised no one counterattacked. And then you've got 3, 6, 9 tankers coming in, bringing in 75,000 units of fuel to Perth. The ship that was sunk was the Fenris, which is a very good ship. You can see the total victory point value is 29. That's basically like a light cruiser in terms of value. Carries 14,000 units of fuel, can make a total max speed of 16 knots. A very good tanker, so to lose that hurts. the Allies don't get enough tankers. They really never have enough tankers, but they definitely don't have enough tankers until you get to like 1943. So to be losing anything, you know, at this point in the war, any tankers at this point in the war hurts. And we've lost a few. The Fenris was the most valuable of them. But you can see here, I mean, we've lost two kind of like these two Dutch tankers. The Iris only carries 1,700 units of fuel, so a dinky coastal tanker. Same for the Angelina, so those two were kind of meaningless. The Manervarta, a little bit nicer, 5,000 units of fuel, and then the Sun Chaser, which had 6,000 units of fuel. So these are still kind of mostly coastal tankers, not big ocean-going tankers. Like they do go ocean-going routes, but they're not huge. You know, again, they're less than half the size of the tanker that was sunk in terms of tonnage that they can bring. But I mean, we've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big tankers, and then we've lost 4 medium-sized tankers, and then 2 small ones. So like those aren't trivial losses, especially when you consider, like, you'd say, well, you know, it's only 1 tanker, you probably get more. But if we take a look at this, we take a look at the availability of tankers that are being built, you know, we get a decent amount. We get a pretty good chunk of them in 44, you know, 20 plus for sure, and 43, a pretty good amount there in 43 as well. But look at this. For the rest of 42, we've got 1 coming in a month and a half. We've got 1 coming in just shy of 3 months. 1 in September, 1 in October, 2 in November, 3 in December. So it's really not till December of 42 that you start seeing like 3 in December, 4 in January. What is that? 4 more in February. 3 in March. 3 in April. 3 in May. 4 in June. So like really December of 42 is when things start to ramp up from a tanker production point of view. You get less than 1 a month up till then. So it's really not something that we can afford to lose a whole bunch of these things, unfortunately. And we've lost, you know, we've lost more tankers so far than we will have in replacements till what, 43 at least in terms of the number sunk. So that's not good news. You don't have enough. You never really have enough. We do have some oilers as well, which come online, which also helps. I mean, they can be used for more frontline activities because they're a little bit faster, but we've got one of those, the Kankakee, coming in 35 days. She's a nice big ocean-going oiler, carries ocean, like naval oiler, carrying 1,200 fuel, 16 knots. And then we've got the Tapanook, which is similar, same class of oiler. And then the Sumiko. So these are all kind of the same ships. But yeah, not good news there. Now, I do use my cargo ships to carry a lot of fuel as well. You can see here we've got a task force unloading in Perth right now with 17,000 fuel. They've already replenished, haven't they? That's kind of foolish. So they have 1,800 per... So yeah, I mean, they carry at least double the fuel in their bunkers that they chew up, but it's not efficient to use cargo ships for fuel. I do it all the time, but that being said, it's not efficient. Where are these guys going? They're carrying some cargo to Broome, and we've got some ships which are pulling back they're headed back to Sydney after dropping fuel at Darwin. So Darwin has a decent amount of supply now. We've got 21,000 fuel and, well, not even that much, really, 6,400 supplies. They've been chewing through the supplies that we brought in there. We've got more task forces on the way. 5,800 here, 5,700 here, 2,000 there. So we do have some task forces that are going to try and sneak some more fuel into the northern coast of Australia as well to help with the logistics. This is largely a logistics turn. We are also beginning to unload the 1st Marines in Australia. So we've had a U.S. Army division here for a little while, the Americal division, but we're now in the process of unloading the 2nd Marine Regiment, which is part of the 2nd Marine Division. All of the 2nd Marine Division will be at Melbourne soon. They're all on task forces on the way. The exception being the 8th Marine Regiment, which is at Savi, although we have started loading those boys up as well. So if we go over here, the 8th Marines here, some of them are still obviously on the land. They helped to retake Savi from the Japanese. But we are loading, you know, the Alcoa Pennant here with troops to go to... I should really tell them not to load supplies. To go to Australia. We're going to have to do that one transport at a time because the docking facilities at Savi are very poor. You can only have 6,000 tons of shipping docked here at the moment. So you could unload them in landing craft over the beach quickly, but to load them back up takes time. And that's what we're doing. The reason that we're doing that is we did bring in the 58th sort of independent American Army or U.S. Army Infantry Regiment. So we've got 100 AV, so we don't really need the Marines here anymore. But it's going to take a couple of weeks to get these boys all loaded up in Savi and into Australia. But once they all arrive, we'll have a Marine division in Australia. We will also have the Americal division in Australia. So I have two pretty good divisions in Australia. The Americals are green, but it's a well-equipped division. And then we've got the 2nd Marines, which right now, again, just the Vanguard, just a regiment here. But we'll have the 2nd Marine Division as well in here. And these guys they have more experience. They're closer to 60 in terms of experience. So if we wanted to start a counterattack, at least in terms of ground units available, I feel like 2 U.S. divisions would go a long way toward getting us to a spot where we could launch a limited offensive, something like Taro was. So maybe, when we get around to mid-July, late July, we'll begin the planning process to possibly retake New Caledonia. It makes me a little bit nervous because we haven't sunk any carriers yet. So, operating is going to be risky. There's a lot of land bases they could use as air bases, too. We have been bombing a Fate, which has 3 ground units on it, apparently. Has a level 4 airfield. What we might do first is we might drop a small, combat engineer unit at Tana and try to take that base from the Japanese and then start building an airfield up there. Tana is 12 and 13 hexes from Fiji, so if we want, we already saw last turn, obviously we bombed there, but 12 hexes is easily inside normal range for B-17s, so we could hit we could help soften them up a bit. The P-40 Warhawk doesn't have the range to sort of provide cover there. The E can get to 5. You can give it drop tanks, which get a little bit further out, but we won't have the range to get the E out there either. 12, I think, is outside the range of the P-38 also. So that's kind of unfortunate. So, I mean, really the hope has to be that the Japanese don't have much committed there to defend that particular base. Another option is maybe going for the Belop Islands to the north of New Caledonia and just cut all of New Caledonia off. Get an airfield built in there, and then you can just bomb them from close range. But all this stuff is sort of in range of any Japanese aircraft that might be at Espírito Santos, which is probably the big base in the area, I would assume, based on my limited intel. It doesn't seem like they've spent much effort in building up Nomaya. Intel still says it's a 2-2 for port and air capacity. Comac has a level 3 airfield, so they might have built that up a little bit. So maybe they've got something there. It's a little bit further out. We'll have to see, but my general plan is to, I'm not big on retaking every island. I think island hopping is important and bypassing bases is important. But that being said, New Caledonia, Nomaya specifically, is worth a lot of victory points. And if they get float planes in here, it really messes with my ability to transit shipping back and forth between the U.S. West Coast and Australia. And, just cleaning up my strategic line of communications is important, especially if he's going to start getting really aggressive submarine commanders who start torpedoing merchant ships, which we really haven't seen a whole lot of yet. Meanwhile, we are still unloading some troops at Baker. Have these guys been spotted? It says thunderstorms. Doesn't say they've been spotted. So these are pretty valuable too, aren't they? 16, 8, 12, 8. So not great, but good valuable transports. You don't have enough transport shipping either as the Allies, but they're unloading a base force unit and a coastal artillery unit. It's very slow. We don't have the facilities in place on Baker to do that. We also don't have the supplies, so we're trying to get that unloaded as well. So far, it looks like the base force unit has unloaded all of the infantry that comes with them, so at least in terms of that. They haven't unloaded their anti-aircraft machine guns, their observers, or their aviation support yet, but a big chunk of the, a chunk of the unit in any event is already unloaded. And then we've also got the 93rd Coastal Anti-Aircraft Unit, which has unloaded some of its anti-aircraft machine guns and 37mm guns. They have not unloaded any of their 40mm Bofors yet. So those are still there. And then their support is also still sitting on the transports. Makes me a little bit nervous with these guys sitting here. We do see Japanese shipping out to the west here near the Gilbert Islands. Not sure if that's just a submarine loading up at a tender or if that's more ships than that. It just says one, but I do have one carrier sort of looming out here providing long-distance coverage, hopefully undetected from the Japanese. Just in the event that we think they're going to send a raiding convoy down, I will dispatch the Hornet to deal with them. But if it's like, oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of carriers here, they should, hopefully, be able to sprint back to Pearl without too much risk. Although they have burned about half their fuel. So something to keep an eye on. I don't think anything happens this turn. Although if it was a raiding task force, they could maybe get there in time. Probably not quite, but close. Meanwhile, the shipping that we had raided Meaden with is retreating back to Sri Lanka. So our destroyers already got a nice head start, and they will be there 3 moves per... We're back to regular speed here, so it looks like they will probably make Sri Lanka tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but the day after. And then our light cruisers are also on the way back. These guys are going up to Karachi. They got the fuel to do that as well. Our one heavy cruiser as well, making its way out of there. Rangoon is sitting at 91,000 supply. Good amount of supply here. No real risk of spoilage, I don't think. I think we've got the base built up enough that spoilage isn't a concern. We're almost to level 4 forts there. I don't know that we need to expand the airfield anymore, especially since the Japanese are probably going to take it at some point, so it might not make sense to expand it any further. But we are unloading. We've got 91,000 in the port, and then we've got another 10,000 sitting on shipping in the outside there. We also have another 6,100 arriving tomorrow if it doesn't get torpedoed. And then we've got 18,000 on some small transports to the west of Rangoon. So that's almost another 20,000 supply. Another 1,400 there. So we do have about 20,000 total supply close-ish to Rangoon. And then another 15,000 plus that's loading up in Calcutta as well to come south to keep that logistical train moving. I did spot a Japanese task force down here near Kuala Lumpur moving northeast along the coast of Malaya. Probably won't arrive this turn, but that is something to keep an eye on. We've spotted at least 4 destroyers, so there could be a raid coming in. Could just be a surface raid against our shipping. It could be something bigger. And I don't really have many warships in the general area to resist against that. I mean, we could divert our cruisers to Sri Lanka and have them maybe refuel there and see if we want to send them east, but they're probably already kind of done. Like, their fuel situation's not good, their ammo situation's not good. I can't really afford to throw them back into a fight. They might just be trying to raid Great Nicobar Harbor too, thinking that maybe our ships retreated to there. Not sure, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. I brought some more Blenheim 4 bombers back into Rangoon as well to help us keep an eye on that. So if we go here to medium bombers, where are they? We brought in a squadron of Blenheim 4s, which were up in India. We sent them to an ASW search that basically covers Port Blair to Mergui, and they'll see if anything's approaching Rangoon, hopefully before the day before it arrives. Troops in the Philippines, the situation's dire, and it just keeps getting more dire. That's not going to change. So, unfortunately, that is just what it is. And that's kind of mostly it. They keep bombing Coast Coast, which kind of sucks. We do have one ship in the harbor there. These guys are sitting... So they got a third of their unit suppressed. So it looks like they're mostly bombing the 2-1 AIF Pioneer Battalion. I did set up one mission to try and surprise those Bettys and Nels. If they're going to keep hitting me there, I am deploying the Formidable and Hermes, 2 British carriers, a heavy carrier and a light carrier, as well as the Repulse. and some considerable AA guns as well. And so we are going to send these guys. We don't have a ton of fuel to spare, but we're going to send these guys down. They're going to refuel at Colombo, and then they are going to go ahead and sail well west of Coast before approaching Coast. And maybe we can ambush a Japanese bomber formation if they continue to sort of pepper Coast. So that's, something that we're doing. And then I also thought, hey, if they're going to do a Bay of Bengal raid of cruisers or destroyers after we saw that, maybe we should bring our other British carriers into action, the Indomitable and the Illustrious. So we're bringing those guys out to play as well. We do have a nice size fighter squadron on the Indomitable, 31 Martlet 2s, which are basically just F4Fs. The ship also has to be withdrawn in 42 days, so, might as well make use of it while we've got it. Actually, between the two ships, we've got almost 60 fighters between the two, with about 27 torpedo bombers. And then if you actually look further out, the Formidable, which withdraws in 87 days, has another 28 fighters. They're Sea Hurricanes, 6 torpedo bombers. And then the Hermes has, I think, a fighter squadron. Yeah, 20 Wildcats. And I think that's all. It says aircraft capacity, 20 out of 20. So the torpedo bomber squadron of Swordfish here is not currently... I mean, they're aboard the ship with no planes, so... Yeah. But 20 fighters in the Wildcat squadron here, so 20 Wildcats and 28 Sea Hurricanes, so that's 48 there and then almost 60 in the other one. We got about 100 fighter aircraft if we really want to between those two task forces. Hey, Finish, good to see you. And Wolf, thank you for the raid. Appreciate it. Hope you all had a nice end to your stream, and thank you for the resub. Well, thank you for gifting Finish a resub. Appreciate that. You guys missed it, but the Japanese torpedoed a ship off Rangoon, and they torpedoed a very valuable tanker off Australia for the raiders there. So we were looking at that. Not what I'm looking at. Ship sunk. So if we take a look here last turn, we lost a very valuable tanker, the Fenris, and 2 decent British cargo ships, the Silver Teak and the Nurmal. So it was an active turn from a submarine perspective. Not a lot else changed. Not a lot else to discuss, I don't think. China just seems quiet. I don't know if he's reorganizing everything and planning a major push soon or what. But there doesn't seem to be a ton of stuff going on here in China right now. Where's the other group here? So these guys are where? So sorry, what? 60th Chinese Corps. 7456. Is that down here? Yeah, it is. All right, so we are going to take one of these provincial corps, move them down here, because I don't think there's going to be a push here. I send these guys and move to join this corps so that we can form that corps up and maybe try to put... We know the Germans... There were Germans. We know the Japanese have 1 full division southwest of Guilin. So we would probably have the strength at Guilin if we want to bring additional corps down. Oh, wow. These guys are... Holy crap. I didn't realize these guys had drawn that many reinforcements. These boys are strong. These guys are almost fully equipped, at least from an infantry squad perspective. They got a good number of AT guns as well. 66th Chinese Corps here, split into 3 divisions probably. A, C, and A, B, and C here. 203 AV for all 3. If we merge them together, that's a unit with north of 600 AV in a single Chinese unit. That's a pretty solid unit there. And then we've got the 18th Corps coming as well with about 300 assault value. And then also we've got 3,700 at Luchou. Are these guys actually moving or are they just sitting? They're just sitting. All right, so we're going to set all these guys to rest. I don't want to move. I'd rather rest. Because these guys have all already got here, right? Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of Chinese corps here at Luchou. Some of them arrived by rail. I'm trying to remember where I moved them in by rail. Maybe I don't think they could rail from Chongqing. Maybe up from Guilin. Anyway, there's a good chunk of AV here. 3,700's a lot. That would take a lot to try and push us back. A major Japanese effort. We've seen no indication of that quite yet. But we'll let those guys rest. Are all their reinforcements turned off? Not all of them, but most of them. I'm glad that we got the 66 and that other hex, though, sort of forming up. Because, frankly, we could definitely, like, if we wanted to, then we could wreck a Japanese division if we moved all these guys in and just stomped them. Just said, you know what? You're going back to Canton in body bags. So we could definitely do that. How does the game handle historical Chinese corruption in their units? It does not handle corruption per se, but their units are nowhere near as efficient as the Western allies. So, you know, you get a lot more units, but they don't punch as hard. So it kind of is reflected in that, I suppose, in just the overall quality of the units. 2,300 assault value southeast of Qinglan, or is it Qikine? And then 1,700 in the city. I need to double check the actual supply situation in China using the app that lets you do that, or not the app, but the Excel sort of form. Need to make sure we're not bleeding too much supply. We've had the Burma road open this entire time, which is not normal for a Chinese player. Usually by now, Burma has fallen and the supply situation in China is dire, at least until 43. Because the Burma road is open, the supply situation is not as dire. You can see we got 74,000 supply in this one hex here. And then Chongqing itself has how much? 38,000. So just between those two hexes, that's over 100,000 supply. Another 10,000 there, 5,000 here, 7,000. So we're not like even close to out of supply in China. But it's not quite, you know, I got to go back and double check and see where all the supply is located and what the trend lines are. I haven't looked at that in a few turns. My main concern is I'm digging in a lot of places, and building forts is, especially when you get above like 3 fort levels, it gets very expensive in terms of supply to build fortifications. So I need to make sure we're not overstripping our supplies. My plan at Chiking is once we get up to level 6 forts here is to stop building. Chongqing, because it's sort of the last line of defense, I'd like to get to 7 or so. And then most of these other places are much, much more reduced. You know, you got 3 here. Guilin kind of being on the front line, I think it makes sense just to build up what we can. It's almost to 4. That'll be nice. And then Luchou also almost to 4. But we got to be careful not to build too much because it isn't cheap. Let's see here. Rangoon. We have a lot of supply in Burma, though, so it is, in theory, slowly flowing into China, in addition to what already comes from the Burma road. I don't think any of these guys are spoiling, are they? 5. Supply limit's 80,000 there. Rangoon is large enough that it has no supply limit. It's sitting at 91,000. Pegu sitting at 5,500. The supply limit's 8,000. It doesn't look to me like we've got any bases where the supply limit should be a concern in Burma. Like we shouldn't be dealing with a ton of spoilage. So I guess at least that's good. What's Mole Mine sitting at? 15 out of 80. So overall, that's okay. Are we trying to build this base up? We are. It's currently a dot base, but we would like to build it up into a flag base, which we need to put at least one airfield or port here at Ramir Island. So we're doing that while we're also trying to build up the defenses there. And then, yeah. I don't know that there's much else to show. Like I said, the Marines have started landing at Melbourne. Marical and other units are preparing for New Caledonia and Espiritu Santo's possibilities. Suva expanded the port to 4. We're going to stop that there. It's already 2 over the stack limit. A size 4 port can hold up to 48,000 tons of shipping at the dockyard. So I think that's probably sufficient for this base. I mean, you might want more if you're doing heavy bombing campaigns out of Suva, but it is what it is. And then we've got 51,000, or we're 51% of the way to level 5 forts at Suva. It seems like a Japanese thrust on the Fiji island chain is... That felt very real for a while, and we heavily reinforced. It feels like since, we're already into June of 42, that is probably off the table. We've got a good Australian brigade here of regulars. We've got a good American regiment here of regulars. Some nice support units at Suva, and then we also have the 1st Australian Infantry Division and the 7th Australian Brigade all formed up here with regular units at Nadi. So we effectively have 2+ divisions on Suva or on Fiji. I don't think it's likely that the Japanese will attack there. Pago's sitting with a couple of regiments also, and these all kind of mutually support. Suva's a little bit more out there on its own. I can't fly from Savi to support Suva, but I can shuttle units in from Tonarapu or Vavu. 9th Marines, they're part of the 3rd Division, but they don't arrive. The rest of the units don't arrive for another 3 months, so I don't need to worry about shuffling these guys out quite yet. And then we've got a bunch of task forces and stuff like that that are forming up in the U.S. West Coast for supplies, kind of another run of logistics. Let's take a look at a couple other things here real quick. Let's take a look at aircraft losses. Nothing to speak of yesterday. Top pilots. Our top pilot is... Oh, that's the bottom. Our top pilot is 8 kills, T. Cole, but he died a while back, I think. We've got Van Harlem, a Dutch boy, 7 kills. B.D. Wagner, C.H. Older, Pappy Boynton, R.H. Smith all sitting at 7. We had 321 pilots killed so far. Another 300 plus missing. Ground withdrawal. Where are we sitting at here? Withdraw in. 22 days for a bunch of support units. We're already in the process of replacing several of them, so we're good there. Group withdrawals. Air units. 9 days on some B-17s in the Mojave Desert. 15 on some B-25s in Stockton, Washington, I think. No frontline units, at least for 3 more weeks, but in 3 weeks we start to lose some of the Vindicators and Helldivers that we sent to Calcutta to train. We also start to lose some fighters a little bit beyond that, I think in like 37 days or so, 25 days. Some of these fighter aircraft at Rangoon, which is very heavily stacked, start to withdraw in a little over 3 weeks. It'd be interesting if he knows that. Like, I don't know how well he knows the American sort of withdraw dates, but we've got 3 AVG groups here of about 75 aircraft of all cracked pilots. These guys all got to withdraw in July. And we've got, so those 3 units got to withdraw. I think we've got some fighters out this way that have to withdraw soon too. So it would not shock me if, maybe not, would not shock me if he knows like, hey, you're going to lose half your quality Air Force at Rangoon in the next few weeks. I'm going to wait for my major thrust till then. Although we do have considerable reinforcements which have landed in Karachi that would hinder that. I mean, we've got 227 American aircraft in Karachi training. We've got, 100 at Bombay. So that's, 400 aircraft there. Chittagong has another 100 aircraft. Calcutta has over 70 F-4Fs in one formation, almost 300 aircraft. We've got, that's got to be, I'm doing real rough math in my head, but we got to be real close to having like 1,000 Allied aircraft in India and Burma. Maybe more. So I can't imagine that's a enticing situation for a Japanese player. But, and one other thing to be aware of, U.S. 40th Infantry Division has arrived in India. FDR called Churchill up on the phone, and he said, yes, my American boys will go to defend your empire. And so he sent the 40th Infantry Division to India, as well as some support and aviation units. They'll be unloading at Karachi to join forces already there. Famous phone call finish, famous. Very famous. The Americans said, we believe in the British Empire, so we will have our boys fight and die to preserve British colonialism. Yes, little known fact. I'm sure someone somewhere believes that. We've already got some support units. The 53rd Infantry Regiment. I really need to modify some of these headquarters units because these guys are assigned to the South Pacific, and they're in like the furthest. I guess on this map it looks eastern reaches of India, up against the mountains at Lido, as well. So we'll have over one full American division is already in place there, and there's more coming. Mainly because the whole thought is the likely location of any real conflict is going to be over Burma. That's going to be the most likely near-term conflict. We are sending another 20,000 troops with tanks and artillery and coastal artillery to Australia, so they will join the 2 American divisions already in Australia, and we'll go from there. But it's kind of enough of me rambling, guys. I think that's about it for today's episode. So I've actually already... Well, actually, let's take a look at the operations report. 1 ship at Comac, 3 ships at Nomaya. Harbor at Leh is empty. Cargo ship at Luganville, 1 ship at Tana. Some of those are probably tenders for patrol aircraft. Task Force 73 out of fuel. Where is that? $73. Nobody's out of fuel. What are you talking about? Although some of these guys are not in great shape. Oh, but this doesn't matter because they're flanking it and they're off map. So if those guys are red, it doesn't matter if they're off map because they don't actually use fuel off map. So these guys are all off map. So anyway, so that ops report seems a little... Okay. Anything else? Just trying to take a look. Previous report of sinking of I-7 is incorrect. Ship sighted and engaged at 5251. So that's an example of fog of war being corrected. Okay. Well, I don't know. Task Force 73 disappeared, so... Right. Rival base is unavailable. Do these guys get assigned a new base? Because it feels like that's what they should do. SIGINT. It would be real nice if we could... Heavy radio traffic detected at Tokyo. So something's happening at Tokyo. Maybe that's where the carriers are. Who knows? Probably not, but... Heavy volume of radio traffic at Singapore. They could be there too. Really kind of disappointed we haven't had any intel reports saying where the carriers are. That would have been nice. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today's episode of War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, my Let's Play series against Evoken. Episode number 173 is in the books, a bad day for Allied merchantmen, but hopefully things get better in the future. I am trying to be better at ASW, but it's hard. With that being said as well, tomorrow the channel will definitely have a Suzerain Rizia video. Game comes out today, but I didn't get early access to it. I didn't actually email them until Friday about it, so I wasn't able to get to anything recorded or in the can for today. Game comes out today, the DLC for Suzerain, which I'm really excited about. So the plan will be to stream it tonight, Monday night, and then to post that video onto the channel Tuesday morning. and probably post some suzerain content for at least the next few days on the channel, because that's definitely one of my most anticipated things for 2024. So we'll see how that goes. With that being said, again, I keep saying the same phrase. That's all I got for you today. So until next time, it's the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'm out.